Rona. Looks like we got a lot of people popping in, and many of you I know and am well, good friends with, and I just want to say I appreciate you guys taking your time to pop in here. We got people literally from not just the United States, but all over the world popping in. The majority of us look like we're people, at least that I know, are from the kind of Southwest Washington region for the most part. But this video, just so you guys know, the webinar is being recorded. It will be available later as well. I'm going to make the slide deck available, and there's a lot of the different resources and things in here that I'll be sharing with you. So I'm going to go through a lot fairly quickly because my goal is to provide you with just a ton of value today. And then I'll be able to do Q&A afterwards, as well as, you know, I'll offer to kind of follow up with you if you have questions on anything as well. But I want to first just honor you guys. I know we're all going through a lot right now. There's, you know, a lot of us are cooped up at home. We're in quarantine. Many of us are leadership positions, running businesses, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of fear, but there's a lot of good news and a lot of positive stuff going on as well. So with that, I just want to say thank you for taking your time that is precious to listen today, and I will make sure that I provide you guys with a ton of value. So I was thinking about the different positions that a lot of the businesses and organizations are in right now, and I realized that there's a few different positions that businesses are in. Some businesses right now are closed. And they may have a lot of extra time on their hands. And I have some ideas about what they should be doing with some of that extra time. Obviously, it's great to spend time with family and catch up on a lot of that stuff too, but there's some things that you could really do to advance your position during this downtime as well. Spend a little extra time on it. So I'll touch on that and really coming up with a comprehensive strategy of how you're going to come out of this. And then there's people that are still in business and, you know, maybe in a limited you know, in maybe a adapted way, they've kind of changed how they're doing business. And I'll also share some strategies on things that you can do right now to generate more business. And then there's some people who are, you know, doing really great. In fact, their business is growing, which is a great position to be in. And we'll kind of touch on all three of those areas. So looks like I just want to make sure we're all good. We got a full house. I'm super excited how many people decided to register, but I'm just going to jump right in and go through it. So this is my family. You know, we moved here in Southwest Washington. Gosh, it's been 14, 15 years now. It's our dog Blaze looking at everybody right there. I'm the founder and director of digital strategy at Web4. We're a creative and digital marketing agency here in downtown Vancouver, right on Main Street. And actually, it's a little over 11 years ago, as of last month, is when I started Web4. And that was in 2009, when the economy was smoldering at the time, and there was, I was actually working at a job where I had made the most money I'd ever made in my life. And so, you know, what propelled me, what on earth would make me decide to go ahead and leave that job for no salary, no benefits or anything, to start my own business? I literally had nothing and just went around and started shaking hands and kissing babies. And it was because where I was working, I didn't feel like what I was doing was having a positive impact. I was going to work every day and it was eating away at me inside. And I realized that I would rather make half as much but do something I love where I'm having a positive impact than to continue doing that. And that's exactly what I did. So in 2009, as everything was still smoldering, I quit my job and started Web4. And you know, the rest is history. We have this amazing team of people that just makes me love my work more and more every day. We just have an awesome group of people that love what they do. We've won a lot of awards, like I talked about. I'm just sharing that with you to share with the weight of some of the things I'm saying. Is we've been there, we've done it with some of the smallest to some of the largest companies like Discover Award, prior to them becoming Zoom Info. I'm on the board. I'm the board chair at the Greater Vancouver Chamber of Commerce, and in my spare time I also serve as on the board at SEMPDX, which is a nationally recognized nonprofit that helps support the digital marketing community. So business owners, students, people that work in digital marketing, we provide continuing education for those people. So another place to check out if you're looking for more education on this. So I want to dive right in. I want to ask you a question. What do you think the number one determining factor of a company's success during any challenges? And I know there's a lot of different ideas on that, but this is what I believe. I believe the mindset of the company's leadership is the number one determining factor of success or failure. I've seen it over and over again where right now there's a lot of business owners that are frozen. They feel frozen. Their mental state, everything, because it's like, well, what can I do? My business is closed. I can't sell what I'm selling. I can't do these things. So they're in that state. And it's so important more than ever that we get our minds right. And what I mean by that is we need to use this as an opportunity, because we get into our patterns where we've been doing the same pattern over and over, and we really love how we do that. But what happens is we get hit upside the head, right? And we're in this position now where we have to do things differently in order to survive and thrive. And so now is the time to innovate, and it's more important than ever for you to step up as a leader for not only your team, but for your company and for the community as a whole. And so I'll talk a little bit about some of the different aspects there. And I love this quote by Albert Einstein. He says, "In the middle of every difficulty lies opportunity." And I think it's important that we focus on that. My son plays competitive basketball, and he used to always talk about, like, after a game, he would complain about how dusty the floor was and how they were sliding all over the floor. And so I would walk them through and ask them, I said, well, when you're focusing on the dust on the floor, what does that do for you? Does that actually make things better, or what's it doing? He's like, well, no, it's frustrating because I'm thinking about the dust on the floor. And I said, okay, well, do you think everyone else, are they playing on the same floor? Do they have the same problem? And he said, well, yeah, of course they do. And I'm like, well, if it doesn't benefit you by thinking about that, maybe it would benefit you by realizing that everyone else is getting frustrated because they're dealing with the same issues. And if you come in with the right mindset, you can actually do better, because you're going to perform better when you have a better mentality, right? And we're in the same position. We're all on the same playing field, right? And so right now what happens, and I'll kind of walk you through what happens in a downturn market, like a recession. You might start out, and let's say that this is your market share, and you have 1% of the market. And when that market shrinks, you have 1% of a smaller market. So of course you're doing everything you can to get by with that. Excuse me. Now, what I think smart businesses do that are prepared for this time is they realize that what a lot of companies do is they'll pull back during this time, and they'll kind of sit on the sidelines and wait, and they'll maybe even lose some market share during that time. What smart businesses do is they actually sometimes they work twice as hard for half as much, but what they do is they expand their market share even in that down market. They get more brand affinity. They may not grow from where they were before a revenue standpoint, but they grow within that market. And then as the market expands, they now have a larger percent of a larger market. And I've seen this over and over. A lot of the companies that we work with have gone through these same markets. And I have some examples too, where I'll share with you what clients have been doing this in this market and are seeing some great, great results from it already. So one of my favorite oxymorons is anticipatory retaliation. So anticipatory retaliation, and basically that's a military oxymoron for first strike, but I like it because it goes in line with what I'm talking about here. Is you need to skate to where the puck will be, not where it has been. We know what's going on right now. We know where the problems are, but what we need to do is we need to look at a month from now to 2 months from now, how are we going to come out of this better than everyone else? And so that's what I'm going to walk you through, because a lot of the business, even prior to this, I was explaining to them all the things that, hey, this is what you should be doing. The good news with some of this is now they're listening or saying, oh, okay, so I should have done that before because it would help me in a time like this. Yes, that's exactly what they're saying. And I launched this book last year called Future Proof Your Marketing. And I'm going to give away some copies here at the end as well. But I launched this book last year, and at the time I didn't think it would apply to a global pandemic. But in it, I actually shared a very simple methodology. And I think for me, this provides me a lot of peace of mind, and it also provides me a very simple strategy that I always am focusing on. This is what I think every business should do. You should know and love your customer. A lot of businesses make the mistake of falling in love with their product or service as their first love, so to speak, right? But what you should do is really know and love your customer first, because what happens in a market like this is the way you've been delivering your product may have to change. And it's really hard for you to think about changing that, But if you know and love your customer and their needs adapt, you can adapt, right? And so you need to understand their psychological needs. You need to understand their behaviors as well as their customer journey as a whole. And when you know those things, it's really easy to create the right strategy. So then you can align your strategy around your customer if you know those things, right? What a lot of people do is they do the opposite. They just jump into tactics. They start doing this, this, and this, and they don't really have a real understanding of their customer and their customer's journey prior to doing a strategy. And what really is a critical component to deal with change is you need to continually monitor, measure, and adjust, right? So that you can adapt to the changes that are happening. And what I would say is an even better spot, which would be like a next level spot, is when you get to can actually anticipate what their needs are and deliver on them prior to them even getting to that point, right? So that's when you really know them. I love this quote by Peter Drucker. He says, the aim of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well the product or service fits them and sells itself. And I would take that a step further and say the aim of marketing is to actually know the customer better than they know themselves. What I mean by that is I used to provide some of this information without some of the context that I had around human psychology. And I actually for a period of time was going to be a psychologist. That's what I wanted to do. And I have always loved people and just understanding the way they are. And so I had a lot of, I guess, understanding of just human psychology and why people did the things they did. And it's one of the reasons I enjoy marketing, and I love being in marketing. And so I want to make sure I provide you with this context because it's going to be critical for you to understand and really get the value out of some of the other aspects of what I'm saying. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but a lot of you guys know this already, is the general sections of the brain like the neocortex, which is more for rational thinking, the mammal or limbic brain, which is more around emotional learning, emotional memory, and the pain-pleasure response, right? So it's kind of what we associate pain and pleasure with. And then you have the reptilian brain, which is more so around the 4F. So well, it's one of the reasons we stay alive when we sleep, right? We keep breathing, but it's also responsible for our base instincts, the 4Fs, which are fight, flight, food, and fornication. So that's why a lot of times the media, when they're creating headlines, it's hard for them to not do some of the sensationalistic fear-based headlines, is because it works. It actually gets us to take action and click on the news. So it's good to understand this aspect so that you can understand the study that was done by Harvard. And when Harvard did this study, they found out that only about 5% of purchase decisions were done at the conscious level, that 95% of those were done at the subconscious mind. So what does that mean, and how do we actually, I guess, implement that or understand that at a deeper level? So I'm going to walk you through what I look at as the human psychological needs. And this is kind of like Maslow's, if you know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's basically like that, but more for current stage. So in general, as people, we avoid pain and we move towards pleasure, right? Now, that's not what you associate pain and pleasure with, it's what that person associates pain and pleasure with. You might associate pain with one thing and another person associates pleasure with that. So it's all about what they associate pain and pleasure with. And you have this kind of base level of need. So at the very bottom, you have certainty, right? Certainty or safety as a whole, right? We all want to feel safe, we want to be certain, and we all value these at different levels. And then you have, everyone has a need to feel important in one way or another, right? We all want to feel like what we're doing is meaningful, feel like that what we are is we're significant, we're important, and so that's a critical thing to look at. And we all want love, we all want connection in some way or another, right? And so there's different ways that we go about getting it. I won't dive into that too much, but another big need is variety. And for a lot of you right now that are like me, that have a high, like variety is a higher need for me, this is really hard, being at home all the time. And I mean, at this point, all of us are going, I need to get out of the house, right? We're cooped up. But for someone who has a need for variety, I mean, even before, I used to just get fidgety and be like, we need to go somewhere, we need to get out of here, because I have a high need for variety. And then there's progress. We all want to make progress in whatever we're doing. And if you look at game theory, it kind of shows out in that as well. If someone's not making progress, if something's either too easy or it's too hard, we generally aren't going to do it. We want to continually making progress at something. And then, of course, I think as we raise levels, it's about having an impact in society or having an impact in contributing something meaningful. And in today's day and age with technology, the highest need of all is Wi-Fi, of course. And I don't know if you guys have ever had your Wi-Fi not work during this time while you're at home, but it's big. So when you understand these needs, you can better create messaging, you can better create a customer journey that actually addresses all these levels. You can look at, as someone is going through the checkout, have you provided enough certainty for them to actually go through that process so that they feel safe doing that? Are you providing, are you making them feel important? If you're sending them an email message and it's not personalized, that's not going to feel as important as if it's personalized to them, right? So these are just basic things, but they get a lot deeper, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. So I'm going to share with you my super secret techniques for getting in the mind and heart of your customer. And I think at the end of the day, the heart is the key. The mind is important, but the heart is a whole nother thing. So we'll talk about that. And I think the best marketers put on the pantyhose, okay? So that'll stick in your mind, I think, because I think it's really important that we get in the shoes of our customer or the pantyhose of our customer, or whatever it is. We need to be able to put ourselves in their shoes and understand as if we are that customer and understand what their concerns are, what their fears are. And when you're able to do that, and then you can come from a marketing aspect and understand the psychological background, then it makes a bigger difference. And so one way we do that is by creating a persona. A persona allows us to really have an in-depth understanding of the customer, and then we can break out the customer journey. So the persona is going to allow us to look at and understand how can we create the right messaging to reach this person so we really understand who they are. And then the customer journey is, where are we going to get that message? Because it tells us the path that they're on, right? So, and with today's technology, all this is available. And as you go through and look at creating a persona, I like to use the acronym FUD, and that's why I got Elmer over here in the corner to remind you. You want to be thinking about, what are their fears? What are their uncertainties? What are their desires? And how do they make decisions? And if you go through all these, you're going to find opportunities, because these are constantly changing. And right now they're changing drastically, right? If you had before, if you're someone who came out, you provide home services, which I know some of the companies are, that actually come out to a client, they had uncertainties before. And so if you provided a picture of who's coming out and a picture of the vehicle, that could provide some, I guess it could help them feel more certain and safe about having someone come out to their house. Well, now you need to also provide information about what you've done to prepare, to handle and to make sure that you're addressing their concerns around COVID, right? So what have you done there? So it's important that you understand these things and think about how they adapt over time. And there's a lot of different ways you can get this. Of course, the best way is to talk to the customers and get a lot of information from them. You can also talk to sales and customer service, though, right? So they're a great wealth of information. If you maybe don't have access to the customers, you can talk to the sales team and customer service. If you have a tool like CallRail or one of the call tracking services, you can actually get in and you can look at all the calls that are recorded, and if it's actually taking, so a lot of times you'll use like natural language processing to pull out the text, and you can do keyword spotting, and you can see specific keywords around different concerns, products, services to tell you what, at a scale, what your customers are actually asking about, what questions they have, what concerns they have. And you can narrow these down in a lot of different ways based on those calls. So for a lot of our businesses, clients, calls are one of the #1 conversions for them. Other clients, they might be e-commerce and they don't want as many calls. This is a phenomenal tool and I love it. I use it all the time. It's called Crystal, and I'll put all the links to these tools. We'll share them at the end of the presentation, so you'll have links to all these, but this is Crystal Knows, K-N-O-W-S. And what it does is it actually allows you to understand someone's personality. It uses the DISC profile and it runs it on publicly available information. So for instance, Elon Musk shows he's certified right here. That means, or verified, that means he actually took the test himself. What it normally does is it uses like their LinkedIn or publicly available information. And so there's a free one where you can actually, as you're meeting with someone, it just tells you who you're talking to. What it does is it allows you to actually understand how to more effectively communicate with them. So here it says Elon tends to work like a general, bold, pragmatic, skeptical, and extremely goal-driven. Sounds pretty accurate, right? It also says when speaking to Elon, be blunt and logical, stay on topic. Talks about what motivates Elon and what drains Elon. So all these things can actually if you have a customer that has, in certain industries, you're going to have customers that maybe fall into certain VISC profiles more commonly, and you can use this information to tailor your communication both via email, on the website, the content you create, in sales collateral, so that it's effectively communicating with them, right? And I thought this was funny because it said, be blunt and logical, and I thought I wanted to reach out. So I reached out to Elon Musk about that, and he got back to me, and you know what he said? He said, yeah, blunt's good. Pause, I know I can hear your laughter in the background. So, no, all kidding aside, once you get all this information, and I could spend hours just talking about how to analyze and pull together all this information. But once you get this information, it's important that you put it in a simple to understand persona that can be used throughout the organization so that each person on your team understands the customer's needs and is able to communicate effectively with them, depending on their role. For instance, we had a Vancouver clinic, which one of the initiatives with them was, hey, we have 250 physicians. I'm like, if we can get them to create one piece of content a year, how amazing would that be, right? If each one of them could create one piece of content. And so, but it was, let's show you who to write that content for. So now that you actually know, like once you've gone through that and you truly know your customer, I'm going to ask you to stop trying to sell them your product or service. Okay? Instead, think about delivering on the feelings, the solutions, the stories, and the better future that they actually long for. And I think this is a problem that the majority of businesses I see do is they sell you the product, right? If I am selling you a cape, right? This is what most businesses do. Most businesses will say, hey, I have this cape, it's red satin, it's beautiful, it's flowing, it's 6 feet long, you can fly, it's this wonderful thing. Instead of saying, you know what, the feeling is amazing. This cape is the same cape that Superman used, right? It's modeled after the same exact thing. And when you put this on, you're going to actually be able to be the hero that you always wanted to be. You'll be able to fly through the sky and get from here to London because you can't fly on the planes right now anyway. So that's what I'm saying is it's so important to not just think about selling features and benefits because that's where the conscious mind lies. Our subconscious mind is looking at meeting our needs, right? How does this meet my need of feeling important? How does it meet my need of love and connection? You know, if you, what's that really expensive purse? I can't think of the name of it. They're like $3,000 to $5,000 for like a Louis, I think it's like Louis Vuitton purse. People don't buy that purse. It's not a rational decision, right? It's not like this is a high quality purse. I'm going to buy it because of this great quality and features. No, they're buying that purse because there's probably one of two reasons. One is they have a need to feel important, and by having that purse, it says that in their model of the world, that being able to afford that and wear that purse, that shows, that's a sign of them being important or being admired by other people, potentially them looking at like, oh my gosh, they have that purse, right? The other part is potentially the connection or love, because a lot of your friends, if you're in a group and they have that purse and you want to be part of that, you want to be connected or loved, that's why people buy those products, right? So it's important to understand why people buy the things they do and why someone might spend 5 times as much on something. So now that you actually have a better understanding of your customer, you'll probably already know your product, it's important that you come up with what's called a unique value proposition. And this worksheet right here is something that we created. It's free, you can download it. It's webflow.com/UVP for unique value proposition. But one of the things you could do right now is actually work on this and come up with messaging that more effectively resonates and connects with your customer and actually talks about like what's in it for them. And one of the tips I'll give you here is think about one of the situations where you worked with somebody where like it's just an amazing story, you love talking about it. Think about that story and walk through everything and what actually came about in that person's life because of you and your company, your product or service were part of it, right? And if you do that, then you'll start to see the actual true impact that you can have and be able to communicate that more effectively. So that's a critical component and can greatly change the effectiveness of your business, your messaging on the website, your messaging in your sales collateral, and this should be used across a number of different areas. So now we understand the customer, right? And that allows us to get the right message in front of them, right? That resonates with them. Now we want to know the path. We want to know what path are they on so we can get this right message in front of them in the right places at the right time, okay? And so when you look at a customer journey, it's basically just a visual representation of what someone's thinking, feeling, or doing as they move through the kind of the customer experience, right? Across different stages and channels. The average person right now touches 14 sources prior to making a purchasing decision. And so a lot of times people think, oh, well, I get a lot of my business from referral. Well, that's great. How much would they lose if they weren't showing up in all these other areas, right? Because even when someone's getting a referral from you, they're going online, they're researching you, they may have forgot your name and they're starting to look online for your actual service to see if they remember your name. So many of the other things that come into play. But even across channel, it's important. And I think what's good here is when you start looking at the customer journey and map out what is the customer doing at each stage of the buying process, from awareness to consideration to purchase to when they start using the product or start advocating for the product, right? And the stages can change, right? We can come up with whatever makes sense for our particular business. Well, what are they doing in that stage? Where are they doing it? What tools are they using? Are they on their mobile phone? Are they on a desktop? Are they using search? Are they asking on social media, right? And what are they thinking? And what are they feeling? And then what you do, the whole goal of this is to find the gaps. Where are your customer that you're not? Where is the experience not maybe meeting up to what it should be? If they go onto the mobile website and it took 3 seconds to load, that means you're losing half of the people that came to the mobile website just because it takes more than 3 seconds. So you need to improve that user experience, right, as part of that customer journey. So it's about finding gaps in the customer journey to make sure that you're having a great customer experience and that you're showing up with the right message in the right places at the right time. This is a really cool tool. You can use it for free, uxpressia.com, and you can create customer journeys. It has a cool tool to create personas too. So either of those can utilize. A big part of what we do is when we're getting into the mind of the customer and understanding their journey is what are the different keywords that they're using. That really tells us what's going on in their mind, and we can do a lot of different keyword research. But what I tell people all the time is it's kind of like what most people do is they go out and just dig for gold in random places. What keyword research does is it tells us where that gold is buried. So if we create, the goal is you find out what are your customers actually looking for, what are the questions that they're asking, right? And then you go and create highly valuable content to meet that. And that is how you get the gold from each of those areas. So this is such a critical component of your digital strategy. And there's a lot of information available to find out not only what your keywords are, but what your competitors are ranking for, what questions they're asking, and there's a lot of cool tools there. But now that we have, so this is when we can actually develop a strategy because we understand your customer, we understand the journey. Now from that, we have all the information that allows us to create a comprehensive, integrated, customer-centric strategy, right? And this can actually make you 10 times more effective, and I've seen this over and over and over again. And I'll walk you through, because a lot of times when I used to talk about strategy, it would become, I could see people's eyes roll back in their head because there's a lot of aspects, there's a lot of different things that go on. And so I created this really simple visual to kind of explain having a customer-centric strategy and kind of what it should look like. So this is a visualization of what your strategy should look like with kind of the channel mix and everything like that. So of course we talked about that your customer should be at the center of your strategy. Everything should be based on them and understanding, knowing and loving the customer, knowing their path. But there's also another area, which we're not going to talk about as much. There's what we call endorsers. This is the media or influencers. Could be peers, vendors. Could be a number of different people. Could be strategic partners, right? They endorse you. They might not become a customer per se. It might be a customer in some cases as well, but it's an important part. Really important aspect is community. What are you going to do? How are you going to give back to the community? What's your involvement going to be in the community? These are critical components of a strategy. And I'm not going to dive into all those today just because we don't have time, but as you start to look at these different areas, you start to look at, well, what are the consumer behaviors, right, around my customers? And you have people who are searching. So these behaviors align very well with particular channels as well. So when someone's actually searching for something, right, they're actually looking online for what you offer, maybe searching for that product or service, maybe they're looking for your particular business, or maybe they're just trying to solve a problem that your product or service solves. That's a highly valuable customer because they're looking for what you offer. And so it's just a matter of showing up, and the return on investment there can be huge. So that's a really important channel to be part of. However, if there's no demand there for what you're offering, then search isn't going to be your priority. It may not be your main focus. What I mean by that, maybe you created a brand new product and there's no demand out there. No one's searching for anything related to it yet. Then search probably isn't going to be the best channel for you. Social media, another great channel, and a general rule of thumb around social media is the more social your business is, the more social media is going to benefit you, right? So if you were to think about a spectrum of like 1 to 10, 10 being, you know, entertainment and restaurants and day spas and things like that, highly social, people happy to talk about them publicly, to things that are less social, like preparation H, right? Adult diapers, things like that, right? They're not as highly social. Generally speaking, that's going to apply. Now, those are just rules of thumb, right? Another rule of thumb with social media is the more niche your audience is, the more social media is going to benefit you. And this can actually work across many different channels as well, but it's helpful. And you can take a large, broader audience. You don't generally want to target a broad audience in most platforms. You want to niche that audience down and target a very specific niche audience so your messaging can be very focused towards them as well. And then you have direct. Now, direct is where you're reaching out directly to someone or they're reaching out directly to you. It can be email, text messages, push notifications. I mean, tons of different ways they can reach out directly to you. And so these overlaps are here for a reason. Each of these channels, when you're working together in a comprehensive strategy, they all benefit each other and they work together. And I was actually teaching a class, I think it was at WSU a few years back, and somebody said, well, with social media, you're not like, you just wouldn't even do any social media for someone that's saying do like preparation H or adult diapers. You just wouldn't even recommend to do social media for them, would you? And I was like, no, I think everyone should be in each of these channels. And I think this whole epidemic and where businesses are, it clearly makes my point, is you need to be in each one of these channels so that you have some presence there as things change and adapt, that you can adapt with them. And so I actually created this ad to prove that you can always, you know, there's rules of thumb, but I always say thumbs are meant to be broken. You can always come up with creative ways to do things. And so it was during the Super Bowl, and I came up with this commercial, and I said, you've been drinking a lot. You have to go to the bathroom, but there's a minute left in the game, and your team's about to score. What do? Depends, right? So it's just a fun, creative thing you can do. Now, you have to make sure that that creative thing matches your brand voice and everything like that, but there's always the exception to the rules. I'm not saying these are hard and fast rules, right? Now, when I actually meet with a business, what I often see is they have these strategies, or they don't have a strategy in most cases, the vast majority, but they really don't understand how the different tools, tactics, and everything kind of align. So I'm just going to give you kind of a general map of how that works. So these things are going to be cross-channel, your website or app, right? They should be marketed and benefit from all these different channels: social, search, email, direct, your content that you create. I put value here because I think it's important. A lot of times businesses just think, I just need to create content. It's like, no, that's not what we're talking about. You need to create value based on your customers' needs, right? And a lot of ways of doing that through content. It might be video, it might be a blog, it might be an infographic. There's a lot of different ways that you can create value, right? But that should be repurposed and redistributed throughout all these different channels, right? You put a lot of work into creating that. Shouldn't be something that you just sit there, right, in maybe a newsletter or just in a blog. It's like there's ways, and I'm going to show you some ways to repurpose today. And then your user experience and the conversion rate optimization. You need to make sure that you have a good user experience throughout. Your brand and messaging, this is critical. It needs to be consistent across all these different channels. And then, of course, PR, right? Your public relations or your reputation management should benefit from all these different channels. It should be utilized and be a part of that strategy. And then measurement. You need to have a measurement plan in place to measure all these different things. And we'll talk a little bit about measurement in a second. So in the search channel, you have organic SEO and paid ads. I'm being very simplistic here. But generally speaking, those are your two main tactics in the search channel: organic SEO and paid ads. And in social, you have organic social and paid media ads there as well. And then in direct, you have like email, text, chat bots, push notifications, and the such, right? So these are kind of some of the main tactics and where they basically fall in the different channels. Now, this is just kind of a visualization of what a lot of businesses look like when I sit down with them initially and I look at their strategy. Our company or someone on our team looks at their strategy and it's like, hey, we have a website, you know, we're doing a lot with social media because our CEO told us, you know, he was told he needs to do social media, so he's putting a lot there, but not really measuring it, doesn't know if it's effective. We show up in search, but not really effectively, and we have an email campaign we send out every once in a while, but it's not really done with a lot of intent, and none of these things are overlapping. They're not benefiting each other. The content that's being created isn't being repurposed and redistributed throughout these different channels. The teams are in silos. They're not working together, right? So this is what a lack of strategy looks like. That's why when you actually have a strategy, it can be 10 times more effective. And so this is probably what their strategy should look like. In this particular case, where search should be their priority, that's not going to be every business. Some businesses are going to be different channels, but this is an example of where search is the main priority. Search should be the largest focus. Social and direct should both have, in this case, in this particular business, search and direct should both be prominent as well, just not the main focus, right? Because they all work together. And then they should be doing all these different channels, creating the content that shows that is repurposed and redistributed throughout all these different channels, send out emails, paid ad campaigns. So this is just kind of a general visualization of what that looked like. So some of these things might be removed and saying, hey, well, we're not running chat bots, we're not doing push notifications, but these are the tactics we're doing, and this is the priority. Now, this is what an example of what a customer journey looks like, because we have a lot of different touch points. Let's say that someone finds you in search, right? Now, you've done a good job. You set up a remarketing campaign. That means when someone visits your website, it allows you to show an ad to them at a later point. So again, they see an ad later, which comes back to your website. Maybe they signed up for a webinar and they actually signed up, so you have their email, and then you send them an email later and you actually ask them to follow you on social media, right? So now they've deepened the relationship, and what's happening, it's kind of like gravity pulling you closer to the center. The more you deepen the relationship in these different channels, the closer people get to becoming part of your community, becoming an endorser, and then ultimately a customer, right? So they come back, maybe they start engaging with your content more, and then they search for your brand. That's often one of the last searches, because they've gotten to know your brand, they search for your brand, and then they become a customer. Now, a lot of marketers think that their job stops here. It does not. You should be thinking about the entire customer journey. So now that they have your products, now that they're working with it, what is the experience like from that standpoint? Because ultimately what you want to do is create what's called a brand champion, right? That's your customers that are out there singing your praises, that are marketing for you, right? So that's ultimately your goal, and you should be thinking about how they can actually advocate for you to fill the top of the funnel, all right? So that's just a visualization of the strategy. Right now, what a lot of us need to do is we need to look at what do we have in place and to be able to adapt our tactics and strategy for our current needs and changes. I think one of the number one things businesses should be doing right now is activating their brand champions. A lot of businesses have customers that love them, right? You've had a huge impact in their life. We have a client, a nationwide adoption agency, that they've done one of the most amazing things anyone can do, and allowed them to, help them bring a family member into their life. And I mean, what larger thing, like what more meaningful thing in life could you do? There's not much, right? They're bringing an actual child into your life. It's like, activate those customers and say, hey, if this is a time of need, feel free to ask. Those people, you've impacted their lives, you've helped them, and so ask for their support. If you're in the restaurant business, it's fine to ask for their support. Come up with something creative, and we'll talk about some different ideas around that, but come up with something creative and feel free to activate those brand champions, ask for their support. And you need to adapt your messaging as well as increase your communication. If you haven't already, you should have a COVID-19 announcement on your website. So make sure you add that to your website. There's a couple things you shouldn't do. You shouldn't assume people know you're open. Right now, people might just think you're closed. So when they come to the website, if you don't have that announcement explaining what steps you've been taking to put some of their fears at ease, as well as letting them know that you're continuing business or how you're continuing business or what special offers that you're doing during this time or whatever it may be, they're not going to know. So don't assume anything right now. You also want to update your messaging in any campaigns you're running. If you have, say you have a newsletter that's scheduled to go out, or you have paid ad campaigns, you need to think about how you need to update your messaging. One is just to make sure that the messaging doesn't now come off as insensitive, but the other is to think about and update it. Hopefully you're being proactive, and if you're running special offers, that you're including that as part of the campaign. You also should be reaching out to all of your clients via email, phone, just checking in on them, seeing how they're doing and adding value. How can you add more value to them at this time, right? That's the biggest thing you can think about is how can you help right now? It doesn't have to be about getting them as a customer again or anything like that. It's just about helping and adding value to them. So this is a great example of just, you can have a quick notification bar. You can also have a short one that goes to a links to a blog or something like that as well. And then I love this, like send out email communications. I think the Chamber did a great job of really providing a lot of value and providing education, because there's a lot of misinformation on some of these business programs out there, and sending that out to everyone. So email your customers, and it doesn't even have to be a newsletter. You can just email them directly in BCC or however, or personalize it to each one. It would be the best way to go, but depending on where you're at, there's different ways to do that. So how do you add massive value? I think there's a great example of adding massive value is thinking about how SEO and content overlap. If we are looking at what our customers' needs are right now and how they're changing, we can create valuable content to align with that. And right now, Google Trends is a great tool that can tell you, like today, what's happening. What are the trends changing? What are they looking like? And I just thought this was hilarious because cut your own hair is skyrocketing, right? People are at home and they're going, how do you cut your own hair? And, so it's not something you would see normally. And so you need to think about what is keywords, what topics are trending right now because of this shift in consumer behavior, and how has my customers' needs changed, and how can I actually meet those needs and innovate in a way to do that, right? So there's a lot of different ways on how you can do that. I thought Hornstein Law Group wrote this great small business response steps, and they basically just walked you through all the different things the business should be doing right now, from putting up the poster, which I hadn't known about, putting up the poster in your business to make sure that you're showing the new guidelines and following the legal, telling team that this is the new rules, your tax documents, how to apply for the different benefits, and just walk you through every single step. And this was one that a lot of people had, right? Your fears. People didn't have this fear before, this uncertainty, but people started worrying, well, if I adopt a child, could that child potentially have coronavirus from the parent or something like that? And so they provided education around, this and address that for these people. So there's a lot of ways you can think about adding value at this time. You also need to update your Google My Business listing. Make sure, people know you're open. If your hours have changed, you can kind of change your hours. For restaurants, there's some built-in features now that allow you to say whether you're doing delivery or takeout or dine-in, et cetera, which we're not doing dine-in. So specify that. It allows you very quickly, when someone looks at it, to go, oh, okay, cool, they're doing takeout, I can order, pick it up, or they're doing delivery, I can deliver. So really important to update all these things. Now, we talked a little bit about pivoting the messaging in your paid media campaigns and special offers, but I thought this was great. Drew from our team who manages our PPC campaigns put out this tweet because he was saying, one of our clients is a cruise line, right? They do a lot of river cruises and things like that, and you'd think everything would plummet with all the things going on with cruises and everything like that. And in March, right? And so he went on to kind of share that some of the amazing results that have actually been driven because the client chose to continue forward. They've been through these challenging times before, and they understand the opportunity is that some people contract back. What that does is it allows you to actually so it's a supply and demand type thing. As less people are competing for, in this case, paid clicks, right? The cost goes down. So they were actually able to maximize and get even more conversions more often for less money at this time, which is crazy for a cruise line, right? So it's really about understanding the opportunity and coming up with some really good, offer in this case that would help during that time. This is one of the things that we advise a lot of our clients to sign up for if they were home service companies. Right now, this isn't something that's rolled out to everyone. It's in beta and it's only available in specific geographic markets, but it's called local service ads. And you go through a whole process to get guaranteed by Google. And if you're like a housekeeper or plumber or electrician, you can be here. The cool thing about this is you can turn it on or off. And so we are telling our clients, just get approved so that if you ever do want to use it, that you can use it, right? And so the clients that had that now can set it up, and they're only paying for the calls they actually receive. So it's important that you think about these things not just from a what's working right now, but think about it from a holistic strategy standpoint. This is a great thing, if you haven't done this, you probably should, is what we call dynamic digital prospecting. You can basically take a current audience. Now that could be people who visit your website, right? It's similar to remarketing, or it could be an email list or data you have in your CRM. And you can take a specific niche of target customers and you can say, hey, I want to upload that to my Google Ads campaign. And then I want to create what's called a lookalike audience, where you basically reach users similar to your customers. So you expand that audience using their machine learning to determine, based on that information, what audience is similar to your customers. And so that's a great way to fill the top of the funnel right now. You need to make sure you're adding value, right? Maybe it's a webinar that's more informational at this point, because maybe you can't buy, but you can provide that information, right? So how do you drive them to that, actually get them to register? And then as we move towards recovery, you'll have the top of the funnel full and won't have to start from the ground up. And then you can do the same thing on Facebook as well, use the database and create lookalike audiences. You can also layer this with a number of different things, from, for everything from homeowner to the geographic area that they're in. So there's a lot of different targeting things we can do. So Google actually offered $800 million to support small businesses during this crisis response. And so if you had an active Google Ads campaign last year, they're actually giving credits to small businesses. Just so you know, there's not a way to apply for it, at least as of yet. They're just going to show up in your account at some point if you had an active account through 2019. And so we're informing our clients as this progresses and we get more information. But that's a great way to utilize that to stimulate some of your campaigns. And think about that. Facebook is also doing something similar. So they have the small business grant program where they're actually offering money to businesses to be able to advertise on Facebook. Now, this one isn't specifically people who've advertised in the past, and you need to go in and apply. These links we'll share them at the end, so you'll have the links as well. All right. Now, I saw some B2B companies were on as well, and I wanted just to share some cool tools around B2B. LinkedIn is a great social network for B2B, and this tool, Duck Soup, actually allows you to kind of automate some of the outreach and connection process with people based on their title or a number of other things. So if you're a client who works with dentists nationwide or veterinarians or something like that, you can literally set this up to basically just reach out and connect with those people through LinkedIn and start a conversation. So you can build your audience so that as you share content, you're getting it in front of the right people, right? I could dive into this one a lot more, but it's a really cool tool, especially if you're in the B2B space. Or maybe you're a charity. I know there's some charities on the line. This might be a way, if you know you have specific people or specific titles that are often involved, you can utilize this to connect and outreach with them. And so I mentioned before that I was going to share with you a way to repurpose content. This tool, it's called Lumen 5, uses AI to take your most recent blog posts and automatically create videos that you can do in a number of different ways. But it will take your last blog post and it will automatically send you a link saying, here's a video we created from it. And then it will use some images and put some of the text from your blog over it. And it will start that video. And you can automatically create stories for like Instagram or Facebook or different feeds or ads, whatever. And it just automatically does this. So it'll save you a ton of time and allow you to take some of your content that you're already creating and repurpose it, right? Because we talked about that, needing to repurpose it. So it's important that, I'm just checking on my time. Okay, we're doing good. I want to make sure there's time for questions. It's important right now that we're getting creative and that we're innovating. So I loved what this taco spot did down in LA. They started selling emergency taco kits with complete with 4 toilet paper rolls and 30 eggs, right? So, you know, this business was actually having to close down, and they thought, well, we have all this food, so what are we going to do with it? And what a great idea to say, hey, we're going to do these emergency taco kits, and they were able to get some press from it. When they come back out of this, so many more people are going to have seen them and heard about them and remember this, that they'll be able to come back, right? And the problem what a lot of businesses do is they don't have things set up properly, because what they should have done, which I'm guaranteeing they're not, is they should have had a website up and they should have had a remarketing pixel on that website. So when people went to it, then when they go back and start up again, they can remarket back to that audience and say, hey, we're open. Right? That's something you guys should be thinking about as well. And, you know, now is a great time for humor. I saw Dan was on the call, so I wanted to just thank Dan for, adding some joy to people's lives. I thought this was great. Put on the, Kiggins. It says, Marty, you must not leave the house. Anything you do could have serious repercussions on future events. I think everybody knows what movie that's from, but if not, it's Back to the Future. So it's just, it's a good time to be funny and use that, share it on social media, which a lot of different people shared. I saw a lot of people sharing that. So great job, Dan, on getting creative. I think it's also important, more now than ever, is that you understand how important compassion is. We're all going through tough times. We're all having different challenges. We're all getting out of our comfort zone, right? And so I think I love this, and I want to get this trending. Kindness is also contagious. I want to use that hashtag. And for everyone who's doing, it's an interesting thing, I think, for businesses to think about, because when a business is kind, it's marketing. And I know a lot of people hear that and they think, oh gosh, marketing takes away from the kindness, but it really doesn't. You should really be setting an example for what a good organization does as part of their community, a responsible team of people that's working together, how they actually interact with their community and what they do. And one way to do that is to give back. And I've seen some amazing, amazing things. The Chamber brought together Wellhaven Pet Health and Sweet Spot Skirts to create masks for the veterinary medical hospitals. I was just like, this is innovation at its best. And this is what businesses can do, is say, hey, how can we have a positive impact right now, right? And yeah, definitely getting some press out of it is a great thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, you're still helping someone, right? So make sure that you're doing that. How can you be kind? I thought Bridge Chiropractic did a great job. I was chatting with one of the people there and was suggesting and brainstorming some different ideas, and one of the things that they came up with here is they actually decided to offer chiropractic care to healthcare workers that are in ER and urgent care facilities. I mean, what a great thing to do, that they can help people right now. I was also suggesting, hey, there's a lot of people working from home with their backs hurt. If there's a company out there, you could partner with that company and offer to do kind of some free webinars with getting in front of that big audience of all their employees, right? And so now you need to make sure that you know your customer, you've created the right strategy, right, to target that customer, and you're doing everything right there. Now you need to continually measure, monitor, and adjust, right? So you need to measure, monitor, and adjust. It's so critical that you do this, because if you're not doing this, you don't know what's working or what's not working. Google Analytics is a free tool. You can track a number of things. You can see how many, if you set it up properly, you can see how many people are taking the actions you want them to take on your website, how many people are actually purchasing, how many people are leads are coming in, how many calls are coming in, right? So you can use a tool like CallRail, tell you where the calls are being generated from, right? And you can actually look at it and close the attribution gap all the way back to revenue at some point as well. And another Peter Drucker quote, what gets measured gets managed. If we ever meet, you'll hear me probably say this over and over, what gets measured gets managed. You need to make sure that you're not, one thing I need to make clear is, when you're thinking about your customer, at minimum, you have 2 to 3 customers. You have your main clients as customers, and there might be multiple customers that you kind of create different personas for in there. But your internal customer is one of your most important customers. If you're the business owner, your internal customer should be your number one priority, because they're the ones who make your external customer your number one priority. And how you take care of them is how they're going to take care of your customer. Right? So you need to be measuring and understanding and getting feedback, and have this feedback loop in place with your customers internally and externally. This tool, Office Vibe, great tool to understand what's going on and get feedback, and you leverage that feedback to innovate and do things. I could go and talk about that just for an hour on its own. And then we also use our own custom tool where we track what we call Net Promoter Score to see what our client satisfaction rating is. And it's so important in a time like right now is to really make sure, hey, are all of our customers feeling like they're being taken care of, right? So that was a lot of information. I'll open it up to QA in just a second, but I did want to just make an offer to you today. I know a lot of businesses are scared or fearful or in challenging times, worried about whether they're going to get business assistance, worried about how they're going to open back up and things like that. And so I'm offering to do an hour brainstorm session with you for free. Sit down, kind of just run through all the different ideas of different things that you can do to help grow your organization and your business, right? In addition, I'm going to actually give you a free copy of my book. We were thinking about it. We're probably going to send you a digital copy, and then if you want the print copy, we can mail that to you as well. We were just thinking for health reasons, we might wait on the digital copy while supplies last, of course. And if we think there's a good potential match, so say we think in the future there might be there might be a good customer fit, and this could be 5 years down the road. We don't care. We'll actually do 3 free hours of work for you right now. So that's our team actually diving in, doing analysis, making recommendations that you can implement to move your business forward. And so you can get that by going to web4.com/3 hours and putting in your information, and David from our team will schedule a time for us to get together and go through that. What is the catch? This is the catch. I printed it out for you so you know. Right now, I'm focusing the majority of my time on our current customers. So I have 2 openings that I've opened up a week, and I know I forget the exact schedule, but I know we're booked out a little bit. But so make sure you fill out the form. We're happy to help and kind of move things forward for you and brainstorm. Our whole goal right now is to help as many businesses as we can. I would ask if we send you the print copy of the book, that you make a donation to the Boys and Girls Club of Southwest Washington. The book's $15, so if you want to make a donation of $15, you don't have to, but if you could, that'd be great. And with that, I'm going to open it up to Q&A. I see there's already some questions coming through. It looks like, okay. Also, David shared a lot of the links for you guys in the questions and answers.
Yeah, I'm actually going to put them in again. I'm trying to get the actual link to work here for you. So give me a second. I'll get that back in there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no worries. Thanks, David. But yeah, if anyone has any additional questions, I'm happy to address any questions. Looks like answered those already at the beginning. I'd say, as I'm waiting for a couple more questions to come through, I'll just kind of share with you guys, and you'll see on the next slide, you'll see right here, this presentation will be available right here, slideshare.net/web4. My email contact information is on there as well if you have questions. Let me see here. Open. So thank you. No worries. Thank you, Rona. How does traditional media work in your model? So I think it's a great question, and it's something I think about all the time. It works very well within that model, and I think you need to make sure that you're able to measure. Traditional media sometimes is a little more challenging to measure, right? And so, but with today, like with that call service, call rail, if you're sending out, say, direct mail, we can track that by using a URL that has a specific way of tracking that. We can put a specific phone number in there so we know how many phone numbers that generated, right? We can even look at, was there an increase in brand search traffic during that time because of that? So there's a lot of different ways that we can understand, and I think that's a big part of it, is really understanding the effectiveness of traditional media. There's a number of other elements that come into it as well, right? And I think what a lot of people need to be thinking about is, how do we create content that establishes yourself as a thought leader in your industry, and then how do you take that content and repurpose it and redistribute it across multiple channels? Sometimes that's traditional media, right? Another area I'd say of traditional media is like events, which right now obviously are hit pretty hard. And so you have a lot of that event revenue is being shifted over into digital media, but as events come back, events and digital media work extremely well together, right? And so it's really important that you think about, if you're having traditional media, how you're generally going to own in your digital media strategy. One of those is your website, or at least you should. The other is your list of customers. Two of the most important things you need to make sure you own and you track. So is your traditional media helping you build that, right? And where from traditional media are they driving? There's a lot of different traditional media like radio, TV, a lot of other things. Some of the things are less traditional, but they come into play too, like podcasts and things like that as well. And so please put up your slide on how to apply for your offer. I sure will do that. Here you go. It's the web4.com/3 hours. Thanks, Sue. You're welcome. Contact slide went too fast to write stuff down. No problem, Thomas. Here you go. Marty, hey. So the tool that takes a blog and repurposes that content is called Lumen 5, Lumen, and then 5.com. What that actually does is it utilizes AI, and it will automatically take like an RSS feed from a blog or something like that, and it pulls that information through utilizing AI, and it creates videos. And from that, it might take a couple different headlines, and you can go in and quickly edit and move those things around so that you can share it and basically create different media types that work with Facebook or Instagram or whatever channel that you want to distribute that on. And there's different ways that you can utilize it. You can spend more time editing the videos and kind of doing those, but it's a great tool. On our Instagram account, I think there's a highlight showing kind of one of the ones that we utilized it for, so it can be seen on there as well. Hopefully that answers your question, Marty. I think contact slide, you got that. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate the kind words. I think there's a couple more. Kathleen, did I say Kathleen? Oh, never mind. Quick advice for leading coaching up during crisis? That's a phenomenal question. So the question was, do you have any advice for leading coaching up during crisis? This person is finding that their supervisors are struggling a little bit. You know, I think it is a delicate subject and one that has to be taken with compassion. But I think the number one thing you need to do is lead by example. And I think it can be challenging to do that if you're not taking care of yourself. With everything that's going on, you might be doing a lot of extra work, doing a lot of number of things, and have additional stress, right? So it's important that you first take care of yourself so that you're able to be a compassionate leader who comes in and understands they're having challenging times, but can refocus people to be solution-oriented. I think some of the stuff I talked about earlier as well, where you're trying to get them to think about how can we position ourselves to come out of this better? What can we do now? Because progress, that need, right? So that deep psychological need of making progress is very important. And some people feel like right now, I think they feel like I'm moving backwards. So there's that aspect with less certainty that compounds it. And so they're in a challenging position, and I think it's important to let them know, it's okay to have challenges right now. It's okay to come to you and talk about it and share their feelings and their struggles and things that are going on. We have, a lot of different people working at home, and it's a different situation. Now, for us, we work from home 2 days a week already, so it wasn't that big of a switch. But for some people, it's like, well, you don't have childcare anymore. How's it? You have a child at home, and you're working longer parts of the day because you have to shift things around. So I think that's the number one thing: is lead by example, be compassionate, give them space to let them know it's okay to, have some challenges. Love the humor portions. Thanks, Lori. I appreciate all the kind words. I'll stay on if there's a couple more. It looks like. I appreciate. Thanks. Follow up. I appreciate that. And I appreciate. Rona. I got your number. I'll give you a call. I appreciate it. No problem. Do you work? Yes, we work with nonprofits. Actually, a couple right now, just in different states, and I think it's an interesting time for nonprofits, and a lot of it depends on your specific area that you're in, because there's both opportunities, but there's a lot of challenges as well. So the short answer is yes, we do. And as far as how you can adapt, I'm happy to sit down and do a brainstorm session and chat with you about some of the creative things that you can do. I totally know that. So one of the things that has increased is traffic to news sources right now. So we know some of our local media sources, like the Vancouver Business Journal, the traffic is skyrocketed, right? Because there's a lot of, they're providing a lot of important news to the business community, and that traffic has really jumped up. So it's interesting, all the different changes in consumer behavior. Well, I just want to say again, thank you for all of you guys' time. I, look forward to following up with a lot of you. Jason, did you raise your hand?
I did. Can you go ahead and put up the 3 hours slide for everybody?
Oh, of course. Yeah, some people ask. Okay, no worries. I think I can. My computer's not frozen. I'll say it as I'm waiting for my computer to unfreeze, but it's web4.com/3, just the number 3, I guess let's be clear about that. The number 3 hours, HOURS. Yeah, my computer decided to freeze, so let me see. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it was. Here you go. So this is web4.com/3 hours. Looks like I think I got. Thanks, Heather. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it. All right. All right, well, with that, if anybody has any questions, feel free to follow up with us either through that form or you can shoot me an email, reach out to our site. We're here to help. Yeah, look forward to talking with you. Wish you guys the best of luck, and whether it's your nonprofit, business, or government agency, we're all going to get through this. We're going to be in a good spot, very soon. And so I wish you the best of luck, and I'm happy to meet with you in the meantime to help in any way I can. All right, with that, I'll say goodbye and have a great day. Thank you.